All right, folks, buckle up. We are diving deep into Tolkien's First Age today, the really early days of Middle-earth. We're talking creation myths, epic battles, and a whole lot of elvish drama. It's going to be a wild ride.
Think cosmic creation myths on a scale that would make even Zeus jealous.
Yeah, we're going way back to before hobbits, before rings, before even the Shire existed.
This is the era of the Valar, the powers of the world, shaping the very land itself.
So, where do we even begin with a story this massive? Where did we find source material for this deep dive?
Well, we found this one source that lays it all out, kind of like a crash course in First Age history.
Perfect. Our own little Silmarillion for dummies, huh?
Exactly. Although I wouldn't call it dummies exactly. It gets pretty intense.
Intense is good. Keeps things interesting. All right, let's set the stage. We're talking pre-Middle-earth here, right? Like before the world as we know it even existed.
Right. Picture a void, but not just any void. This one is inhabited by the supreme being, Eru Ilúvatar.
Okay, so we've got our Big Bang equivalent,
Yike.
the ultimate source of everything.
Yeah. And from his thought, Eru creates the Ainur, these angelic beings who are basically pure thought and energy.
So like superpowered beings made of starlight and music.
That's a pretty good way to put it. And Eru gives them these musical themes, these grand ideas, and says, hey, go create a symphony, let's make a world.
So the universe is literally born from a song.
Yeah.
Talk about a cosmic jam session.
The most epic jam session of all time. But of course, there's always that one band member who wants to do their own thing, right? Enter Melkor.
Oh boy, I can already sense trouble brewing.
Melkor was the most powerful of the Ainur, but also the most ambitious, the most prideful. He wanted to dominate the music, to make it his own, to impose his own will on creation.
So he's basically that guitarist who turns his amp up to 11 and tries to drown everyone else out.
Exactly. And this creates discord, this clash of wills within the music itself. It's like a cosmic battle of the bands.
And I'm guessing Eru isn't too thrilled about this.
Well, Eru doesn't shut him down immediately. Instead, he stops the music and shows the Ainur a vision of the world their music has created, a world that includes not just mountains and oceans, but the rise and fall of civilizations, the whole shebang.
Whoa, talk about spoilers. They get to see the entire history of the world before it even happens.
Right, and here's the kicker. They see the children of Ilúvatar, elves and men, who Eru creates directly. They weren't part of the Ainur song, they're Eru's own unique contribution to the world.
Okay, so even these godlike beings can't create life on their own.
Exactly. Only Eru has that power. And seeing this vision, some of the Ainur, including Melkor, are so moved, so inspired, that they decide to enter this new world, to shape it and guide it according to the vision they've been shown.
So they go from being musicians to being world builders. Hands-on creation instead of just playing notes.
Precisely. These Ainur become the Valar, the powers of the world. They descend into this formless void and start literally making the world.
Okay, so we've got our team of cosmic architects, the Valar, but are they all equally matched in power?
Not quite. There's definitely a hierarchy. You've got the big guns, the most powerful Valar, and then the Mayor, who are less powerful but still incredibly influential.
Got it. So, like, master craftspeople and their apprentices all working together on this massive project.
Perfect analogy. And we'll see that the Mayor, while not as powerful as the Valar, play crucial roles in the story. Some of them, like Sauron and the Balrogs, will become pretty infamous.
Ooh, yeah. Those names definitely send shivers down my spine.
Yeah.
So let's stick with the Valar for now. Give me the rundown. Who are the major players in this cosmic power structure?
All right, so you've got Manwë, the king of the Valar. He's basically the CEO of the whole operation, ruling the skies and the winds.
Got it. And who is his first lady? She must be pretty powerful too, right?
Absolutely. Varda, Manwë's queen, is the Lady of the Stars. She's the one who created the constellations, the first light in the darkness.
Wow, talk about a romantic gesture.
Yeah, creating the stars for your beloved. That's a tough act to follow. Then you have Ulmo, the Lord of Waters. He's a bit of a mysterious figure dwelling in the depths of the oceans, not as outwardly active as some of the others, but incredibly powerful nonetheless.
He sounds like my kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
Brooding and powerful. What about nature? Who's in charge of all the plants and animals and stuff?
That would be Yavanna, the giver of fruits. Think of her as the ultimate gardener, but on a cosmic scale. She's responsible for all plant and animal life, the forests, the mountains, everything that grows and thrives.
Mother Nature with a capital M. Okay, who else is on the team?
You've got Uli, the smith. He's obsessed with creating things, shaping the mountains, forging metals, basically anything that requires craftsmanship.
So he's the one we can blame for those mountains that are impossible to climb, huh?
Huh. Maybe. And then there's Mandos, the doomsman. He's in charge of fate and prophecy, the keeper of souls. He's definitely not someone you want to mess with.
Okay, I'm getting serious Grim Reaper vibes from him. So we've got our cosmic dream team assembled. What does their creation look like? What's the world they're building?
Well, at this point, Arda, that's Tolkien's name for Earth, is still pretty basic. It's flat, just this vast expanse of land with a single island in the center where the Valar make their home. And it's dark.
So no Instagram-worthy sunsets just yet.
Not yet. But Ollie, being the awesome smith he is, steps up and creates two giant lamps, Lúthien and Ormel, to illuminate the world.
Now we're talking light.
And Yavanna is thrilled because now her plants can finally flourish. But of course, remember Melkor. He hates light, hates anything good and pure.
Ugh, yeah. I was wondering when he was going to pop back up and ruin everything. What does he do to mess things up this time?
Well, he builds his own fortress, Utumno, in the far north, and basically starts corrupting Arda, creating swamps and breeding monstrous creatures.
Classic villain move. If I can't have it my way, I'm going to wreck everything.
Exactly. And eventually, he launches a surprise attack on the Valar, destroying the lamps and plunging the world into darkness.
So much for those Instagram sunsets. Do the Valar fight back?
Oh yeah, it's an epic battle, a cosmic clash of titans. The land is broken and reshaped, the seas rise, and the world is changed forever.
So even though the Valar are incredibly powerful, they can't just snap their fingers and fix everything.
Nope. They realize they can't stay in this corrupted environment. They decide to retreat to Aman, the westernmost continent, and create a protected realm called Valinor.
So they're basically building a fortress of light to protect themselves from Melkor's darkness.
Exactly. They create the Pelori, these massive mountain ranges, to shield Valinor from the outside world.
Yeah.
And in the heart of Valinor, they create the two trees of Valinor, Telperion and Lorelin, which radiate light and create the first cycle of day and night in Arda.
So we go from giant lamps to glowing trees. Talk about an upgrade.
A major upgrade. Telperion shines with silver light, and Lorelin with gold, and they alternate, illuminating Valinor with this incredible, ever-changing light show.
Sounds pretty magical. I can see why the Valar would want to hang out there. What about Melkor? What's he doing while all this is happening?
Oh, he's not gone. He's back in Middle-earth, sulking in his fortress, Angband, plotting his revenge. But while the Valar are settling into their new home, something else is happening, something that will change the course of history. The elves have awakened.
Finally, I was wondering when they'd show up. Where do they enter the picture?
They wake up by a lake called Cuiviénen in the east, far from Valinor, and the first thing they see is the starlit sky created by Varda.
Wow. Could you imagine waking up for the first time and seeing that? Talk about mind-blowing.
Right. They're amazed by their ability to communicate, to speak with voices, so they call themselves the Quendi, which means those who speak with voices.
But their peaceful existence doesn't last long, does it? I have a bad feeling about this.
You'd be right to have that feeling, because guess who finds them first?
Let me guess. The guy who hates light and loves to ruin everything.
Bingo! Melkor. And in a truly despicable act, he captures some of the elves and corrupts them, twisting them into the first orcs.
That's just awful. But the Valar find out about this, right?
They do. Oromi, the hunter Vala, stumbles upon the elves while he's out exploring and brings news back to Valinor.
And I'm guessing they're not too happy about Melkor kidnapping and torturing elves.
Not at all. They decide they have to intervene to protect these new creatures, and that leads to the first major war in Arda, the Battle of the Powers.
Okay, so it's Valar versus Melkor. Who wins?
The Valar, of course. They're way more powerful. They defeat Melkor and destroy Utumno, but it's a hard-fought victory. The world is permanently scarred by the battle.
So even though the good guys win, there are consequences.
Always. And one of the biggest consequences is that the Valar decide to invite the elves to come live with them in Valinor for their own safety.
Makes sense. Get them out of Melkor's reach. Do the elves all agree to go?
Some do. They become known as the Eldar, those who accept the invitation. But some choose to stay in Middle-earth, becoming the Avari, the unwilling.
So even from the very beginning, there's a division among the elves.
Exactly. And that division will have huge repercussions throughout their history. But for those elves who choose to make the journey to Valinor, it's a long and perilous one.
A journey to a hidden paradise across a world that's still being shaped and reshaped. Okay, now I'm hooked. Tell me more.
Welcome back to our first age deep dive. When we left off, the elves were making their way to Valinor, but we all know Melkor. He can't just let things be peaceful, right?
Never. He's always lurking in the shadows, scheming and plotting. So what kind of havoc does he unleash this time?
Well, it involves a giant spider.
A giant spider. Okay, now you're just messing with me.
Nope.
Yeah.
This is not your average creepy crawly. This is Ungoliant, an ancient creature of darkness who, get this, devours light itself.
Okay, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
And she teams up with Melkor. Talk about a match made in somewhere very dark and unpleasant.
It's a match made in, yeah, let's just say it's not a happy partnership. They're both driven by this insatiable desire to destroy anything beautiful and powerful. Ungoliant wants to devour the light of the two trees, and Morgoth, well, he's got his eyes on those Silmarils.
So basically, it's a let's burn the world down and then fight over the ashes kind of deal.
Pretty much, and that's exactly what they do. Under cover of darkness, they sneak into Valinor and attack the two trees, poisoning them, extinguishing their light. It's like a cosmic eclipse, a sudden plunge into darkness.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Those trees were the source of light and life for Valinor. What do the Valar do?
They're devastated, of course. They try to heal the trees to restore the light, but it's no use. The damage is too deep.
So Valinor is plunged into darkness. That's got to be demoralizing. But Morgoth isn't done yet, is he?
Oh no, he's just getting started. While the Valar are reeling from the loss of the trees, Morgoth and Ungoliant slip away to Formenos, where Fëanor is living in exile.
Formenos, that's where Fëanor kept the Silmarils, right? Under heavy guard.
Yep. But even Fëanor's defenses are no match for Morgoth and Ungoliant. They kill Finwë, Fëanor's father.
Wait, they kill Fëanor's dad? In his own home? That's cold.
Cold-blooded murder, the first one ever committed in Valinor. And while they're at it, they steal the Silmarils.
So Morgoth destroys the two trees, murders Fëanor's father, and steals the Silmarils. This guy is racking up some serious evil points.
He is. And Fëanor, when he finds out, well, let's just say he doesn't take it well, he's consumed by grief and rage.
I can imagine. I wouldn't be too happy if someone killed my dad and stole my most prized possessions either.
He swears a terrible oath to reclaim the Silmarils, an oath so powerful, so binding, that it will shape the destiny of his entire lineage.
An oath. What kind of oath?
He swears in the name of Ilúvatar himself to hunt down anyone at all who touches a Silmaril. Elf, man, doesn't matter. If they possess a Silmaril, they become Fëanor's enemy.
That's intense. It's like a curse, isn't it?
It is. A curse that will echo through generations, fueling countless conflicts and tragedies. And unfortunately for everyone involved, Fëanor is a charismatic leader.
Oh no. He's going to convince others to follow him on this crazy quest for revenge, isn't he?
Yep. He gives this fiery speech denouncing the Valar for not doing enough to protect them, for letting Morgoth escape. He rallies most of the Noldor to his cause, convincing them to leave Valinor, defy the Valar, and pursue Morgoth to Middle-earth.
They're rebelling against the gods. That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It is. The Valar try to warn them. They send a messenger to pronounce a doom upon those who follow Fëanor, but he refuses to listen.
He's so blinded by grief and rage that he can't see reason. But they need ships to get to Middle-earth, right?
Right. And that's where things get even worse. The Noldor go to the Teleri, who have the best ships in Valinor, and demand them.
Wait, but the Teleri were already reluctant to leave Middle-earth in the first place. They're not going to just hand over their ships to a bunch of vengeful rebels, are they? Nope. They refuse, and Fëanor, in a moment of utter madness, orders his followers to attack them.
Elves attacking elves. Seriously.
It's called the Kinslaying at Alqualande, and it's one of the darkest moments in Elven history. The Noldor slaughter many of the Teleri and steal their ships.
They're crossing a line here, spilling the blood of their kin. That oath is already corrupting them.
It is. The Noldor have committed a terrible sin, and they'll be haunted by it for generations to come. But they set sail for Middle-earth, leaving Valinor behind, with a curse on their heads and blood on their hands.
So the Noldor are off on their vengeful quest, driven by Fëanor's oath. What about Morgoth? What's he been up to?
He's back in Middle-earth, fortifying his stronghold in Angband, gathering his forces. He knows the Noldor are coming, and he's ready for war.
This is setting up to be one epic showdown. A battle for the ages. Okay, so last time we left off with the Noldor fleeing Valinor, a curse hanging over them, and ready to face off against Morgoth. But what about those left behind? Well, things aren't exactly peaceful in Middle-earth either. Remember Hurin, captured by Morgoth during that disastrous battle, the Nirnath Arnoediad. Well, he's about to face a fate worse than death.
Worse than death.
Yeah.
What could be worse than being imprisoned by the most evil being in existence?
Morgoth chains Hurin to a peak overlooking his lands, and then gives him this awful gift. He can see everything that happens to his family, every heartbreak, every tragedy, but he can't do a thing to help them.
Oh, it's just cruel. It's like psychological torture on an epic scale. Forced to watch your loved ones suffer and being utterly powerless to intervene.
Exactly. And believe me, Morgoth makes sure that Húrin's children, Túrin and Nienor, suffer. Their lives are a tapestry of tragedy woven by the Dark Lord's malice. But even without Morgoth's direct meddling, Túrin seems to have this cloud of misfortune hanging over him.
A cloud of misfortune.
Yeah, it's like he's cursed. Things just never go his way. He grows up in Doriath, raised by Thingol and Melian after he's separated from his mother and sister. But even in this haven of peace, tragedy strikes.
What happens?
Well, Túrin accidentally kills one of Thingol's advisors, a misunderstanding, a moment of rash anger, but it forces him to flee into the wild, becoming an outlaw.
So even in Doriath, Morgoth's curse finds him. It's like this dark shadow following him everywhere he goes.
Exactly, and it doesn't let up. He tries to make a new life for himself, first with a band of outlaws, then with a group of dwarves, even earns the name Turambar, which means Master of Doom.
Master of Doom. Okay, that's not exactly a good sign. It's like his name is foreshadowing all the bad things that are going to happen to him.
Right. And of course, eventually, Morgoth finds him.
Of course he does. So what fresh hell does Morgoth cook up for Túrin this time?
Oh, it's a long and twisted tale. Túrin ends up captured. His best friend Beleg is accidentally killed trying to rescue him. He falls in with the elves of Nargothrond.
Nargothrond. The Hidden Kingdom. Wasn't it founded by Finrod, one of the Noldor princes?
Yeah, but Finrod is long gone. Killed by Sauron, actually, back when Sauron was just Morgoth's lieutenant. Nargothrond is now ruled by Orodreth, Finrod's brother. Well, let's just say he's not as wise or as strong as his brother.
And Túrin shows up, bringing all his baggage and that curse with him.
Yeah.
Not exactly a recipe for stability, is it?
Nope. Túrin, convinced that he's destined for great things, persuades the leaders of Nargothrond to abandon their secrecy and openly challenge Morgoth.
That's a terrible idea. Nargothrond's strength was in its hidden location, its defenses. Fighting Morgoth in the open, that's suicide.
It is, but they don't listen, and predictably, it leads to disaster. Morgoth launches a devastating attack, Nargothrond falls, and most of its people are either killed or enslaved.
Another kingdom falls. Another tragedy. Does Túrin even survive this?
He does. He manages to escape and finds refuge in the forest of Brethil, where he tries, once again, to start a new life. He even meets a woman, Nienor, and falls deeply in love with her.
Okay, maybe this is it. Maybe he's finally found some peace, some happiness.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But remember that curse. It's still hanging over him, and it has a particularly cruel twist in store. Nienor is actually Túrin's long-lost sister.
No. He falls in love with his sister. How is that even possible?
Well, Nienor had been wandering lost and alone for years, and Glaurung, that dragon who led the attack on Nargothrond, used his dark magic to wipe her memory. So she doesn't recognize Túrin, and he doesn't recognize her.
That's awful. So he marries his own sister. This is getting seriously messed up.
It gets worse. Nienor becomes pregnant, and only then does Glaurung, in a final act of cruelty, reveal the truth to them both.
Oh my God, that's just horrifying.
It is. The revelation drives Nienor to madness. She throws herself into a river and dies. Túrin, overwhelmed with grief and guilt, tracks down Glaurung and kills him, but then learns the full truth of what he's done.
This is just relentless. Is there any glimmer of hope in this story?
Not much, I'm afraid. Túrin, unable to bear the weight of his actions and the curse that has haunted him his entire life, takes his own sword and kills himself.
Wow. It's like one giant tragedy. What about Húrin? Does he ever get free?
He does. Eventually, Morgoth releases him, figuring that a broken man will cause more chaos and despair than a prisoner. And in a way, he's right. Húrin, driven mad by grief and knowing what's become of his children, wanders Middle-earth, spreading sorrow wherever he goes.
He's a victim of Morgoth's cruelty just as much as his children were.
Absolutely. But his pain doesn't end there. Unwittingly, he reveals the location of Gondolin, the last hidden elven city, to Morgoth's spies.
Oh no. Gondolin falls too.
It does. Morgoth launches a surprise attack, and despite the bravery of its defenders, the city is sacked and destroyed. Another light extinguished in Middle-earth.
Is there anything left? Any hope at all?
There's always hope, even in the darkest of times. Remember Tur, Húrin's nephew, who was guided by Ulmo to find Gondolin and warn Turgon of the coming attack. He falls in love with Turgon's daughter, Idril, and they have a son, Arendil.
Arendil. The one who eventually sails to Valinor to plead for the Valar's help.
That's him. When Gondolin falls, Tur, Idril, and Arendil escape. along with a handful of other survivors. They make their way to the Havens of Sirion, the last refuge of the elves and men who oppose Morgoth.
So there's a flicker of hope. At least someone survives.
And that flicker grows stronger. In the Havens, Arundel meets Elwing, granddaughter of Beren and Lúthien.
Wait, Beren and Lúthien. That story had a happy ending, right?
A bittersweet one. They chose mortality to be together, remember? Well, their lineage lives on through Elwing, and she possesses one of the Silmarils, the very one that Beren recovered from Morgoth.
So the legacies of Beren and Lúthien and Hurin all come together in the Havens of Sirion. And Arundel is at the center of it all.
He is. And fate has something truly extraordinary in store for him. But before we get to that, we have to deal with, well, more drama.
There's always more drama, is there?
Especially when the sons of Fëanor are involved. They haven't forgotten their oath. They attack the Havens of Sirion, demanding Elwing surrender the Silmaril.
They're attacking their own kin. Again, for a jewel.
It's the third kinsling, a tragic and bloody conflict. Elwing, rather than letting the Silmaril fall into their hands, throws herself into the sea.
Another suicide. This is too much.
Hold on, this one has a happier ending. She's rescued by Ulmo, transformed into a bird, and she finds Arundel at sea.
A bird. Ulmo turned her into a bird. Okay, this is getting weird.
Weird, maybe, but also hopeful, because Arundel and Elwing, seeing the utter devastation that Morgoth has wrought upon Middle-earth, make a daring decision.
What do?
They take the Silmaril and they sail west. They sail to Valinor, hoping to reach the Valar and plead for their help.
To beg the gods to return to Middle-earth and fight Morgoth. That's a long shot, isn't it? The Valar abandoned Middle-earth centuries ago.
It is a huge gamble, but they have the light of a Silmaril, a symbol of hope and a reminder of the beauty that Morgoth has tried to destroy.
So do the Valar listen?
They do. Arundel reaches Valinor. The light of the Silmaril pierces the darkness and reminds the Valar of the suffering of their creations, elves and men alike. Moved by Arundel's plea, they agree to intervene.
Finally. It's about time.
It is. And what follows is the War of Wrath, the most epic battle in the history of Middle-earth. The Valar come with all their might, leading a host of Mare, Vanir elves, and even some of the Teleri who have forgiven the Noldor.
This is it. The final showdown with Morgoth.
Yeah.
Does good prevail?
It does. The battles are fierce, the world is reshaped, the very foundations of Arda are shaken. But in the end, Morgoth is defeated. He's captured and chained, and this time he's cast out of the world into the void forever.
It's finally over.
It is. But victory comes at a price. Beleriand, the entire northwestern region of Middle-earth, is shattered and sunk beneath the waves during the war.
So it's a bittersweet victory. The world is saved, but a whole land is lost.
Exactly. And the first age comes to a close. The elves are given a choice: return to Valinor or remain in Middle-earth. Many choose to return to the Undying Lands, but some, like Círdan the Shipwright and Galadriel, choose to stay. And Arundel. He and Elwing are set in the sky with the Silmaril, a beacon of hope in the night.
Wow, what a story. From the creation of the world to the defeat of Morgoth, it's all there. Creation, destruction, love, loss, hope, and ultimately a triumph over evil.
The first age is over, but the second age, the age of men, is just beginning.
That's a story for another deep dive. But for now, I think we've earned a break. Thanks for joining us on this journey through Tolkien's First Age. We'll be back soon to explore more of Middle-earth's history. Until then, keep reading, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.